I often hear about people who get disappointed, and none of us like to be disappointed. And so the first rule of expectations, right? If you're going to have expectations of other human beings, the first rules are expectations should be okay with you if they're articulated or stated and you've agreed upon them. Because why wouldn't you be okay with someone having an expectation if you agreed to it? The problem with expectations is there's a lot of unspoken expectations. We walk around every day feeling like we expect / want / need people to do certain things for us, but they're not necessarily communicated. And that's where the communication breaks down. And one of the consequences of that is self-advocacy. So a lot of times people have it in their mind what they want and need, but they don't have the skill set or confidence to express it. And that issue can lead to one of the primary communication breakdowns. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, when you talk about departmental collaboration, company collaboration, or interdepartmental collaboration, expectations rear their ugly head a lot. Recently worked with a company, and I asked representatives from every department of the company, I said, do me a favor. Tell me what are some things that you see as a problem in collaboration for the company? And here's some of the answers they gave. One is other departments have trouble listening and accepting others' opinions. Another said listening before going into solution mode. Secondly, trusting other departments, not being so overscheduled, not being defensive, not being reactive. I mean, all these things around listening and emotional intelligence. And one of the challenges that is very common in communication within a company is people don't know how. People haven't been trained. And especially when people get elevated into leadership positions, in many cases within companies, a lot of the companies that hire us for leadership training hire us because some of the leaders that put in place were promoted because of their good work and because of their great performance, but they don't have any experience being a leader, and they don't really have the skill set developed yet necessarily to be a leader. And again, that's what contributes a lot to the departmental breakdowns too. So one of the examples we did in this training was a company that said, a departmental representative said, we're frustrated because we're not included in the decision-making process. And I said, well, that seems like an easy problem to fix. Why don't you just tell the other people that you'd like to be included in the decision-making process? And the person said, well, I've tried that and it's still really not working. And I said, well, when you say you've tried it, what do you mean you've tried it? And he didn't know how to answer. And I said, anytime I'm teaching someone a new technique or strategy or skill, and they said, I've already tried it and it doesn't work, this is the question I ask them. When you tried it, are you proud and confident in your word choice? Are you proud and confident in the tone and the way you respectfully conveyed it? Third, was your body language consistent to the tone and word choice? And lastly, did you do a good job listening to the feedback you got or received when you did communicate that? And most often the answer is, well, I did 2 of those, but maybe not the other 2, or I did 1 of those and not the other 3. And so I think when it comes to trying something new, executing all 4 things is very difficult. And I often joke with people about, whenever you interview someone for a job, a very common question on a job interview is, are you detail-oriented? And when I think of detail-oriented, I think it often relates to reviewing tasks or content or managing tasks. But you know what it doesn't refer to typically is how you communicate. Are you detailed in how you communicate with others and managing those 4 aspects of communication? So this guy says that, look, I don't feel included in the decision-making process. And I said, look, what's your fear? What is your fear to advocate for yourself? Why don't you just come out to those people and say, look, in a kind way, look, I'm feeling a little bit disappointed. an I statement, not a you statement. I'm feeling a little disappointed that I'm not included, and I want to be, because if I am, I will feel much more part of the team. So what's wrong with that, everybody? For those of you listening, what would be the downside to that? Well, as you think about what the downsides to this, here's where our inner voice becomes our enemy instead of our friend. Our inner voice starts to say, well, I don't want people to think I'm high maintenance. I don't want to really complain about this. Maybe this isn't that big of a deal. Or, you know what? I don't think it's going to matter. Because typically these people, even if I speak up for myself, they're not going to do anything differently, so it probably won't matter. Or, if I did try and it didn't work, then what's the point of even communicating like this in the first place? Okay? So questioning the template or method itself. Okay? So let's start there. When it comes to communication, is your willingness to speak up and advocate for yourself based on the result you're expecting to get? Because the one piece I didn't leave out of it is rejection, because no one wants to be rejected. So if you know something is the right thing to do you sit there and say, well, that was a mistake? Or do you say, well, no. I handled myself well. I was respectful. I was kind. I spoke my mind, but there's no guarantee it's going to work. So you can't execute being assertive and advocating for yourself unless you have measured expectations and understand that you can't control other people and guarantee their behavior. So I think what's really important when it comes to advocating for yourself, step one is, okay, can I deliver this in an assertive and respectful way to feel confident that regardless of the response, it was the right thing to do? Now, let's say you get that far. Let's say you agree that's the right thing to do. Now, how many times does it have to work before the self-doubt creeps back in? So if you're interacting with 4 people and it only works 2 of the 4 times or 1 of the 4 times, do you let that self-doubt creep in? So what are your metrics for success? And it's the same answer. If you think it's the right thing to do, it doesn't mean replace the process. It means maybe alter the technique a little bit.